And you're the culprit, and medicine won't save you. Oh, you're an idealist, aren't you? You're a maker, aren't you? You're a creator and a subsidizer and everything else in between, the sort of being that just wants to create things, isn't it so, right? Because that's exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to create things, aren't you? Yes, with your melodramatic ideas and your sensical ideas and your thought and your process and everything else. It's sort of creating things, isn't it? Inside this whole body of combustion engines, you think you're going to create something. Oh, your ideas are going to be present. But of course, the prevalent idea isn't so according to what you think. Oh, yes, because all of a sudden everything comes back to the beginning. Oh, your process isn't so easy, is it? Because you don't see it, do you? The sort of justification for everything. Maybe you do. But then again, if you really saw the justification and everything, why would you be so vernacular to attack it all? Oh, all of a sudden your ideas come with this brain of insanity. Oh, because you can't see anything anymore. Because you can't see anything anymore. Your breaker, your intensity, everything. I just want to return to you. Oh yes, because the ultimate burn is in your heart. Yes, because of course your ultimate burn is making you bake in the oven for tons and tons of hours. Everything wants to return again. Because you're seeing it again, aren't you? Everything's coming back to the beginning, the climax, and the sort of orgiastic consummation you see from the beginning. You're swallowing every gum down your tonsillitis, and everything else makes you become a flower in your own portion. But you don't have it all in you. Not anymore. Because all of a sudden it's not going to return. Every single thing you've wished is going to burn you up. But not because it's something you wished for. No. It's hardly the cause. You don't have a cause by just wishing for something. Of course, your actions speak a lot louder, but then all of a sudden those actions are put down, copped out. Everything's copped out. If you don't like it here, go somewhere else. The cop-out, the easy cop-out. If you don't like it here, go somewhere else. Easy cop-out. If you don't like it here, go somewhere else. Easy cop-out. Because guess what? There isn't there anywhere else. Everything else is the same. So you break the engagement, you march the brigade in, and then you make everything go back to how it was. The sanity of your mind is so clear. Because everything's ever present. Everything's ever present. And then the only thing you could do to knock down everything is create more social networks, create more expandizing and socializing and compartmentalization. Make it only have one crystal clear image. Don't let multiple outlets come into it. Because if you do, then you have to think about those things too. You have to strategize and make it come closer together. Because you can't make anything come out into the justification of eternal thought of having expansion of mind, or the ever-present, not expansion of mind so much, because that's too much of a hard term for most people to take in, because then it makes it sound like, well, what, I don't have an expansion of mind? Well, I'll make it clear for you. If you can't accept the total brigade of an idea inside one idea, then you can't accept the expansion of mind. Because all of a sudden you're breaking down within the aspects of only one eternal thought. My idea is right, I have an ego. My idea is right, I have an ego. My idea is right, I have an ego. Because you can't let go of your ego. And your ego is not only your own ego. Because if it was your own ego, you wouldn't get upset with the same way somebody else did about something. But you get the same upset that somebody else would. And you say, I agree with blank, because that's what you do. I agree with blank is the easiest way to make anything. Why don't you come up with your own idea, rather than agreeing with blank? Because the sudden atrophy of everything makes you come back to that, because you can't let go of it. Your image is coming so clear, you're throwing yourself into pine cones because of it. And you think that's going to make you better? Oh yes, of course I'm a better person because I don't make any observance of anything else except my own cathedral thought. And then you break, and then you make the idea come into your own stake heart. And then, of course, you make yourself turn into a ghost because of it. Because you can't let go of anything. Oh, your idea is pretty clear. You're trying to make everything come back to the beginning again, but you won't let it come. Because your flower is going late. Going late to school, going late to everything else, going late to pageants, going late to every single thing you could think of. And you know what happens when that happens? It becomes clear. You're not so happy. Because if you were, you would never be late. Not for something you love. And then you end it. You're breaking yourself into the sensitivity aspect. And that's it. That's the only answer. Because, of course, the only answer is, oh, well, I'm not sensitive. No, I'm not emotional. I just think that's very illogical. And then that's your argument. Closed statement, ideas come into your flowing vortex of thought. Because that's the idea. You're rolling down the curb with your demon seed, and you're making yourself present for the ever-present present. And then you sort of just throw yourself around like a past ecological dig. And you don't want to come back to the beginning, because of course if you come back to the beginning, then all of a sudden the atrophy, the apoplexy doesn't want you. And you don't want it. Because you don't want to return to it. No, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want that, Marcello. I didn't want that, anybody. I didn't want that blank. Just put your own name in there, because all of a sudden you're going to have that too. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius won't clear your mind. Because maybe you want that to happen. Your dogs. Suddenly you're dogs. But you're not dogs like those dogs like we see every day, because they're closer to the spiritual aspect of the world than you are. If you were a dog, I'd be happy. But not because you could make an infiltration into what I am when I'm there, but because you would at least have some sense of the spiritual aspects of the world and the sort of paranormal penetration. But of course, you're going to make yourself turn into an egoist. So I'm going to make it easy on you. Your argument is very simple. You've become a deaf person without being deaf. You've become a blind person without being blind. You've become a disabled person, not able to walk, having to go in crutches or a wheelchair without having a crutch or a wheelchair. You've become all those things in one. But it's very easy to do. It's very easy to be the blowhard, because it's easy to do that. The pinhead, the blowhard, the ideas, the thought, the complex of everything, because suddenly it's not so easy to be the complex of everything. It's not so friendly. It's not so fun. But of course, the beginning comes within the aspects of your mind. But of course, that doesn't make the conclusion easy, because you don't want to make the conclusion a better sensory. You want to make the conclusion easy for a grub, a meal. But you don't want to, but of course, not everybody wants that. Not everybody likes that. Me, myself, I make myself into the characteristic of every embrace. Because I embrace everything with an open thought. But of course, there are things that come at me without an open thought. And with having that open thought, I get more penetration from things that I wouldn't even expect. The intrusion of things is only becoming stronger. And so you become your aspect of thought, because you can't see everything, can you? The clear mind won't break you. And the ideas won't stake into the etiquette, because you find yourself into the aspects of indefinable lines. You don't have a line to cross anymore, because you don't make a line to cross. So anybody could cross your line. Every second of your life, anybody could cross your line. You allow that. It's almost like Native Americans, if you think about it. Self-determination. All of you've lost that. Every single one of you. Self-determination, not ego. Self-determination is completely different from ego. But of course, everything becomes ego at that point. What we've become creates our own identity of it. So penetration comes within the aspects of, well, that's ego too. Everything becomes ego except you. Except what you think. Yeah, what you're thinking is not ego. Everyone else accepts it, so of course it can't be an ego trip. The majority can't be an ego trip. What everybody thinks, what everybody generally accepts, can't be an ego trip at all. No, because we've become better than the civilizations before us. Because all of a sudden, the civilizations before us didn't fall down and break. And we're not going to either. Except, you start with blood, you end with blood, you're going to fall back into your ass very fast. But of course, it may not happen during your generation, so who cares? The unidentifiable line will make you come back to the aspects of your life. And so I'm making it simple for you. I want to make everything come back into the penetration of your thought. Not because it needs to. No, it doesn't need to. Because suddenly you've become the abbreviation of life. You haven't even become the test tube baby. You haven't been born. You have not been anything. In fact, you're just a test tube. There's nothing born out of you. So I'm making this into your aspect. You're going to make a sudden judgment call on this, though. And I love that. Your judgment call is going to be my eviction. But I want my eviction from you. Because suddenly, you don't need me if I'm evicted, right? Because I've made a mistake. Oh, I've made a mistake for thinking like I do, and for acting the way I have with you. Because suddenly, I break aspects within my own eternity. And the so-called identifiable thought doesn't come within your string board and your bow and arrow, because you won't find it in your games every day. You can't play bingo every day and be happy. But maybe, if you thought about it, you wouldn't want to lose anybody either. Because maybe they're better than a bingo game. They're better than a card dealer. But you'll never know that. Because you won't encourage the sustenance, the substance, the idea of your strategy is making you evict everything. So come into the strategy, come into the moment, create it. Because suddenly, create, explore, evolve isn't the answer. It's determine, decide, and framework it. That's it. You don't make anything else. The determination of your thought isn't self-determination even. It's determination dependent upon the determination of the people above you, the people in power. It isn't coming from create, explore, evolve. Your idea is coming from your own sense. Instead, you break down that thing because you see the borderline. And you're not going to make your own borderline because that's going to be a lot harder, a lot more difficult to create your own borderline. Because if you create your own borderline, that means that you have to fight yourself. And you have to fight everybody around you. But not in the same way you think. In fact, it could be a very experiential thought because you can create things within your own aspect because of it. But also, there's a self-determination feat to be achieved with it. And then when you get that self-determination feat, maybe you'll have some fun. Right now you won't. But of course you will, because your self-determination isn't in you. So take care, join the gaggle hand, and never come in front of my face again. Evict me, because that's what you want to do anyway. You don't want to continue this, because if you wanted to, you would become the disillusion of yourself, and you would see that identity does not place you into blame. Identity of yourself or identity of people around you. Because see, you're suddenly becoming the offspring of the washboard fence. I wanted to continue this so badly, but you never started it.